What is up, guys? Pizza here, obviously, and today we are here with something a little different. I just wanted to try this out, see if this is something you guys would find interesting, because I know I have really been missing early 2010s WWE. Just thinking about it because of some projects I'm working on. It's really got me thinking about that was the era that I started watching WWE in, was like 2011, 2012. So I have a lot of fond memories of that era, but one thing I never really watched back then, I didn't really start watching it until like 2015 or so, was NXT. I know a lot of great guys and girls came from there, but I never really watched it. It wasn't as important as Raw was. So I decided, since WWE has uploaded pretty much all of them to YouTube, I would go back and check some of them out. Hopefully, every single one of them. So let's go ahead and get started with the very first NXT ever released. Yes, in the wake of the death of WWE ECW is NXT, a brand new show on Tuesday nights to showcase the next generation of WWE talent. Or maybe not. So some things I'd like to note here is that it seems like they really handpicked Daniel Bryan to be elevated as far as he could go, because this entire show was literally pretty much all about Daniel Bryan. Yeah, sure, it's about the other rookies, but man, I I didn't realize how hyped up Daniel Bryan would be. I knew he was big coming in, but everybody's going off. The commentators, like, sure, Cole is like dissing him and being like, he wrestled in high school gyms. Well, this is an entirely new area, but everybody else is bigging him up. Even The Miz, who hates him, The Miz is bigging him up too and being like, so you're an internet darling. Man, they must have known what they had on their hands, so they must have at least seen the potential, which, to be fair, 13 years later, my man is still one of the best in the world, so I'm going to guess they made the right choice there. Very interestingly enough, and I guess they did this just for the episode or just to give Bryan some sort of heat coming in, they made him the Miz's rookie, because back when NXT started, it was like you'd have like main show guys come over and rise up the rookies, which I kind of remember. It's not as important to me as it was for, how they later started doing NXT, but it's still a neat concept. Like, I get what they were doing behind it, is pair them up, see what happens. In the case of Daniel Bryan and The Miz, he called him an internet darling to start off with, which I'm sure a lot of smarks back then hated that, but all I thought of watching it was my boy Zack Ryder. Ah, God, I miss Zack Ryder so much. Internet champion, woo woo woo. The best thing I've ever seen. Bryan is challenged to go out there and have a real match and show some charisma. And then we get two separate 10-second awkward pauses just focusing on The Miz and all these very nude men behind him just casually stretching out. It was really awkward, and I don't know why that was there. So Bryan goes out to cut his first promo, which is neat. It's neat to see Bryan's very first big show promo. Big show promo, not that. His first mainstream promo, and a very muted response, which we're gonna kind of see for all the rookies, is nobody cares. Nobody cares, especially not on the very first show of this brand new thing. Nobody cares about these rookies. And so Bryan comes out, and Michael Cole is on commentary, which is neat. Always good to hear Cole, the biggest shill who's ever shilled. But we had Matt Striker as the host of NXT. I forgot this man was the host of NXT. Oh my God, he's got such a great knowledge of wrestling history, and he got absolutely muzzled, and you can tell he's... Man, I mean, it's neat to see him. Neat to see Matt Striker, but... yeah, not much. Matt Striker is basically just the host of NXT, kind of. So Bryan's first promo, Bryan makes note that he wishes his first pro had been William Regal, which I think was nice that they put that in there, because I would have liked to see that. I get what they were going here. It would have been so much better if it was Regal from just the start. Bryan, I've never seen a whiter white meat babyface. Like, he is so bland in his opening. But the neat thing is, especially when The Miz comes out, you can tell he's actually got some real charisma underneath, but he's just so not there yet. But you can really tell he's got some big charisma underneath, because he goes toe-to-toe with The Miz in this promo segment until his very ending line of, let's see, what can I do to counter I'm awesome? Tap or snap? What do you think, guys? Tap or snap? No responses, though. Jesus, it's the worst. And he doesn't really have any facial reactions, which I get it. This is all awkward. It's like somebody's first dress rehearsal, which is pretty much what this was. And then Carlito! Shoot, I forgot Carlito was employed. Man, I know it's been 13 years or whatever, but Jesus, I thought Carlito was out in like 2009 or something. I couldn't see him come out. He brings out Michael Tarvor, who never really did anything before this, and he's been slugging it out on the indies since then. I'm not sure really what his character is, other than, I can fight, I can punch hard, I'll beat you out in 1.9 seconds, which is cool, I guess, but nobody's ever really made that work outside of, like, Brock and Taker, so, and it doesn't really work here. But the biggest surprise was when they hit Christian's music. I was like, oh my god, it's Christian. It's Christian. He's coming out with Heath Slater of all people. Ah, man, I used to love Heath Slater, like, as just because he's such a he's pretty much where he was always supposed to be. But gosh, I had good memories of Slater. So they had a tag match between Carlito and Tarver and Christian and Slater. And Tarver just focuses on strikes, nothing much else. But he bumps decently well enough. The first real pop of the night, the first time this crowd showed any sign of life, was when Christian and Carlito locked up. So that's neat. We got a pop for Christian and Carlito. They looked really smooth. Tarver was really sloppy when he came back in. And it was a good end, but I really think Slater should have gotten the pin. Because like he trips him up, Christian takes him down, Christian gets the pin and the win. But it really should have been Slater. Like, I mean, this is supposed to be the next generation talent. Why is Christian... It doesn't affect Christian to have gotten this win. It's like nothing. It's like a waste of his time, you know? It was so short anyways. And then we had CM Punk with the Straight Edge Society coming out against David Otunga with R-Truth. And Punk is the pro for Darren Young, but like even in interviews, they just make him seem like such a blase jerk off. Like, well, I don't need to be here. If he wants to be with us, he can take the straight edge oath. And I'm like, this is such a mismatch. Like, nobody wanted this to happen. It added nothing to the match, and it added nothing to Darren Young's introduction at all. Darren Young and Otunga, they're fine. Otunga has the generic rich, pretty man gimmick, which I know a couple people have pulled it off, but the only one that comes to mind is John Morrison, until John Morrison got squashed. But John Morrison was the only guy I think I've ever seen it pull it off really well. I'm sure there's a couple I'm forgetting. But he's just like, he's got zero charisma too. He's like, I'm rich, I'm better, I'm perfect than you, I've met the president, I don't care how you all react. And that's fine, but I also went, well, alright, Otunga, if you don't care, then I'm not gonna care. He's like, you don't know me, you should. And I'm like, alright, cool. Then he goes out and have a super quick match, which is smooth enough. Like, it was a lot smoother than I thought it would be. But that was it. Like, and then he failed his fucking finisher. He didn't catch him right to slam him down, so that was a little iffy. But yeah, Otunga gets the win with R-Truth, and the Straight Edge Society just walks off. They don't care. They don't even intimidate Darren Young or anything. They just leave him there, which is why I'm like, this really added nothing. If it goes somewhere, like, against my memory's better judgment, I don't think it does, but if it does go somewhere, that'll be pretty neat. However, for now, it was just kind of worthless. Like, Darren Young comes out all pumped up, super excited. The Straight Edge Society members and Punk are just, like, dead-eyeing him. Blank face. Nobody cares. Which kind of really hurt Darren Young, I think. I feel like because they didn't care, nobody else in the arena cared. Darren Young was the only person who cared about his debut, which is kind of sad. And then to finish off the show, Wade Barrett and Chris Jericho, World Heavyweight Champ, they came out. And so far, out of everybody, like I know I said Bryan had a good charisma, and you could tell there's more underneath. Man, Barrett has the most personality out of anyone so far. It's not a wonder why he ended up being the first leader of the Nexus, because he shows so much charisma coming out there, just walking, so smart. He is such a smug jerk off, and he wears it so well, especially here. Like, yeah, Jericho's like, just introduce me, because Barrett's about to do this whole introduction. Jericho's like, just introduce me. And so he does, but there's still chemistry between them. It's weird. It worked really well. Bryan looked good in his proper entrance. He immediately shot off from The Miz and did his entrance, and he looked great doing it. And then the second time we get any noise tonight is because Jericho is there. Man, Jericho was so hot at this point in time, and when him and Bryan locked up, this crowd finally got some noise. It went from being like Velocity to Superstars. Like, we're at least finally hearing some life out of these people, which is great. Bryan starts out really hot. The commentators are super bigging him up. This is what I'm talking about. They just keep pumping up Daniel Bryan. They're like, he's so cool. He is so great. And there's Michael Cole being like, he's wrestled in gyms. He's nothing. But even Cole comes back around and calls the spot when Bryan goes in to pin him. He's like, are we going to see him tap? Are we going to see him make Jericho tap? Which is pretty neat. So even though Michael Cole is slagging him off, when it came time for Bryan to do a spot, he instantly shifted into shilling for him. You know, the crowd was real quiet for pretty much the entire night, just muted, but they popped for this match, and they especially popped for when Jericho was in. The one thing I do have to note about this, and I have no idea why they did it, I don't know whose idea it was to let him do this, I never would have let him do it. Daniel Bryan hits Jericho to the outside, and then not only does he do that, he comes back and he hits a suicide dive! And absolutely smashes his lower back onto the edge of the table. It's not like he hits the top of it, slides off. He hits his lower back kidney area completely into the edge of the table with that suicide dive to Chris Jericho. I don't know who let Daniel Bryan take that spot in his debut match, but my God, did that earn him some respect. People started bigging him up in the crowd as well, which was so neat. I wouldn't have done that spot, but I think that honestly kind of saved the match now that I think about it. He is in so much pain, and it immediately bruises up. Bryan, then they get back in the ring. Codebreaker, walls of Jericho. He taps out super quick. He's in it for a second before he starts tapping. Daniel Bryan looks nowhere near as good as he's going to look in a few years. Man, it was the best match tonight. Oh, it was the best match tonight. Out of everybody who just looks like they belong in 2011, Daniel Bryan looks like he has some potential, and he showed it tonight. Miz immediately turns on Bryan, beats him down, is like, you're the rookie, I'm the pro, you disrespect me, I disrespect you. Which was, you saw it coming from the beginning of the show. Overall, pretty good short show. It's 46 minutes on the YouTubes. So it's not anything like NXT would be in the next 5 years when I would start watching it with, Becky, Sasha, Kevin, all those guys. It's nothing. But it's neat. It's a neat little start. It really has that late 2000s feel of ECW apathy. Like, it's just a generic WWE show. There's nothing separating it. But it was still pretty neat to see. It's a good definitive start for the next generation of talent, and I'm definitely interested to see who they start picking up next week, because they were talking about Justin Gabriel and Matt Hardy. Dude, remembering how Justin Gabriel was in a couple years, I want to know how he goes up against Matt Hardy next week. I'm excited to see it. So if you enjoyed this, please be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more, or you have your own thoughts about this NXT stuff, drop it in the comments below. But that's going to do it today, guys. I will talk to you all later. Bye!